Welcome back to the Fantasy Birds. Today, I got my top 24 running back rankings in 2023 fantasy football. Let's not waste your time. Let's hop right into these rankings and tiers for 2023 fantasy football running backs. No surprise, Christian McCaffrey is my number one running back. Now, he's not going to be 2019 Christian McCaffrey for the Carolina Panthers, where he was exploding for 20 points a game in fantasy. He's going to split more time with Elijah Mitchell, but it's still, in that offense, he's still the number one running back off the board in almost every single draft. My second running back, Austin Eckler. Everyone was saying the touchdowns were going to regress last season. Didn't really happen. Still an amazing year for him. Was helped out by some Keenan Allen and Mike Williams injuries. But in an offense like the Chargers have under Justin Herbert, the starting running back with pass-catching ability like Eckler has, the floor is so high for him in Los Angeles. I'm okay with him as a first-round pick. Keeping in mind there's going to be some regression just built into him being an aging running back in the NFL. Staying in Tier 1, Saquon Barkley is my number 3 running back. Gets off the franchise tag, signs that one-year deal with the Giants to keep him as the starting running back. Last year, you were getting him at the end of the second round. This year, you're going to have to pay up a little bit for him. I love drafting him at the end of my first round in fantasy drafts. So the value on Barkley, I'm taking him a lot this season in my drafts. To round out my first tier, Bijan Robinson. Bijan will be a lot higher on this list if he didn't have some competition in the beginning of the season that we project. I think Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson are going to factor into this offense the beginning of the season. By the end of the year, Bijan's going to have a full workload in Atlanta for a team that we saw last season loves to run the football under their head coach. And with a pretty good offensive line in Atlanta, I don't know how you can't be excited for Bijan Robinson this season. As long as you can be a little bit of patient in the beginning of the season where this team is going to work in those other backs just to start out his career. But Bijan, by the end of the year, expecting him to be a top 3 option. My 5th running back in the second tier is going to be Nick Chubb. The floor on Chubb is so high with that rushing production we're going to see for him in Cleveland. No more Kareem Hunt, so the receiving totals could even be on the rise for Chubb. Possibility that Chubb delivers a running back 1 overall season in Cleveland if Deshaun Watson gets this Browns offense moving. I love the touchdown upside from Chubb, in which we might finally see a 3-down workload unleashed for him in Cleveland. I love slamming him in my drafts, especially when you can get him around the second round, pairing him with an elite wide receiver. Chubb is somebody I am looking to target this year. Another guy looking to get his first look at a 3-down role is Tony Pollard for the Cowboys. Zeke's not taking those 1-yard goal line touches anymore, so Pollard could look even better than what he did last season. So Pollard could look for an explosive 2023 campaign. There is some concerns with the Cowboys bringing in another running back before the season is to get underway. There's some question marks with Zeke coming back. Leonard Fournette's still out there, Kareem Hunt. So if they don't sign a running back, Pollard's going to stay inside my top 6, but obviously if they bring someone in, he's going to move a little bit down my rankings, keeping in mind that he's still the number 1 back regardless of who they bring in. But as the depth chart is set up right now, I love Pollard, especially in PPR leagues where we know he's a very explosive running back. Not going to get a huge workload on the ground, but it's going to be increased to what he was seeing last year. Could be a breakout season for Pollard. Approaching age 30, there are some concerns with Derrick Henry, but with new incoming wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, this offense should look a lot better than what we projected a couple months back in Tennessee. With weapons like Treylon Burks and previously mentioned Hopkins, Tannehill back under center, this offense should look a lot better. And in a very weak division, King Henry's still going to dominate touches. I'm still okay drafting Henry with a guy we should expect to get a workhorse load on the ground, which, as we know, is very valuable. And these days in fantasy, not as prevalent as they once were. So King Henry at number 7 overall, I'm okay with drafting him. Keeping in mind the numbers are declining as he gets up in age, but still a very high floor for Henry if he's to stay healthy. My number 8 running back in Tier 3 is going to be Ramondre Stevenson. Very similar to Tony Pollard. Patriots have been rumored to be bringing in another running back. They've had a lot of guys visit their camp, Leonard Fournette, just to name one. If they keep the depth chart as is, don't bring in any more guys, Ramondre is going to be in for a 3-down load. And for an offense under Mac Jones with question marks at the wide receiver positions, relying on guys like Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster, Stevenson looks to be the number 1 target in this offense on the ground and through the air. So if they don't bring anyone else into this camp, I even could see Stevenson moving up to Tier 2 in these rankings. So grabbing him in the 3rd round, I think, is a smash pick if the roster stays as is. Obviously, if they bring someone in, we're going to be moving Stevenson down as well as most people should. But for a guy who basically outworked Damian Harris last season, I'm very confident that Stevenson can provide value in an offense that doesn't project to be that great. I still think his numbers are going to be very good if he's the sole running back in New England, so I have no problem drafting him this year. Now we're going to bring in some of the question marks at running back. Jonathan Taylor doesn't look like he's going to be playing for the Indianapolis Colts. We don't know what's going to happen with Taylor, honestly. I'm putting him here just on talent alone. You're going to tell me he gets traded and he's going to be the number 1 running back. He's moving up the rankings for pretty much any team he goes to. But right now, there's so many question marks. I'm not confident in drafting in the first 2 rounds. The talent and upside is there. I just need some more concrete evidence on what he's going to be doing, what his role is going to look like before I'm wasting a second-round pick on him. Because at that position, it's either he plays or your fantasy season is done. So I'm not willing to roll the dice on him just yet. I need some more clarity, but right now I got to stick him here just on talent alone. Very similar to Taylor, Josh Jacobs right behind him. A dominant league-winning performance last season for the Raiders. Team doesn't look as good as it did last season. Losing Derek Carr, bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo. This team could be an absolute dumpster fire this upcoming year. With Jacobs not in training camp, not playing in the preseason, not working out with the team, I'm very concerned with Jacobs and what's going to happen this year. I'm putting him as a placeholder right here, but obviously if Jacobs is ready to suit up week 1, he'll shoot up the rankings into that tier 2 more than likely. But right now, I'm not very confident we're going to see Josh Jacobs in a Las Vegas uniform this year. Many experts are concerned about the workload with Tank Bigsby being brought into this offense. Personally, I'm not worried about Tank. Etienne, a former first-round pick, profiles to be not only that goal line back, but also an elite receiving back. With an offense under Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, this offense could be top 3 in the NFL this season, similar to what the Eagles were. If I can get Etienne in the 3rd to 4th round at that price point with the upside that this offense has, I think he could win fantasy leagues where he's going right now. Such a talented running back, getting him this late in an offense on the rise. Very similar to Etienne, I got Najee Harris rounding out my top 12 running backs. Najee's proven he can handle the workload. Last year comes into the season limited with an injury. I think a lot of people are holding that against him. We saw him at the end of last season really turn it on and provide some serious fantasy numbers, around 14 fantasy points a game. So when you're getting a guy that we know is going to have a huge workload this in the 3rd to 4th rounds of your drafts, I think we need to be slamming that, especially in year 2 of Kenny Pickett. This offense could look a lot better with a healthy Najee Harris. I don't have a problem with drafting him as my RB2 or even RB1. 13th running back off the board, Joe Mixon for me. There are actually no concerns for Mixon in my opinion. The floor is incredibly high for him in Cincinnati. We know that offense is going to be an absolute monster like it has been the past 2 seasons under Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Mixon's going to get nearly all the goal line work, and we saw at the end of the year around a 14% team target share in the receiving game. So with that receiving work that he's getting, the floor is incredibly high. I have no problem drafting Mixon where he's going in drafts. My 14th running back, Kenneth Walker for the Seahawks. He is dealing with an injury right now. They say it's not too serious, so I'm not concerned about it. People are worried about Zach Charbonnet, and I think that's a valid reason to be concerned. But where you're getting him in drafts, that is already built into his price. If Charbonnet doesn't get drafted by the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker is probably going at the 1-2 turn. So getting him at such a high discount for a guy that is going to be the 1st and 2nd down back, Charbonnet might factor into 3rd down role as he's more of a receiving threat in this offense. I still think Ken Walker, from what we saw last year, such high speeds, agility. I think there's some serious upside in this Seahawks offense that only got better this season. Offensive line looked pretty solid last year. Geno Smith looked good, and now they bring in J.S.N. in the draft, the number 1 wide receiver drafted. We could be looking back this next offseason and thinking, how did Kenneth Walker slip to the 4th round in most fantasy drafts? Same NFL draft as Kenneth Walker. I got Breece Hall, the next guy off my board. I'm very concerned about Breece Hall this season. I'm not hiding it. I'm not taking him in most drafts, considering coming off that ACL injury. There's a lot to be optimistic about in New York if you're a Jets fan. Personally, the offense is going to be better under Aaron Rodgers, but 1 year removed from that knee injury, I just can't get behind him where he's going in drafts. I think maybe later in the season he could look to ramp up his production and volume, but in the beginning of the year, I can't imagine he gets a full complement of the offense at the running back position. Closing out this tier, I'm putting Aaron Jones here. Yes, he's an aging running back, but he's been a top 12 running back for the past 4 seasons, it feels like. So the receiving aspect of his game to go along with Jordan Love under center, he's going to rely on these running backs more than going deep down the field as a new starter in the National Football League. So with Jones, a guy we've seen consistently be a very productive running back, the offense isn't going to look much different than what it was last season. Rodgers wasn't really at MVP form last year, so I think you're going to see some comparable numbers to Jordan Love if he's to play the full season. For a dynamic running back like Aaron Jones, obviously not a 3-down back, but you're not drafting him to be one in this position. So I have no problem sneaking him into my tier 4 of running backs with how consistent he's been in fantasy the past 3 to 4 seasons in Green Bay. My 17th running back, Miles Sanders, gets a pretty big contract in the offseason. In an offseason that didn't see running backs getting huge contracts, Sanders does go out and get a pretty sizable one in Carolina. Tells me that he's going to be the lead back there. Now, the offense doesn't look great in Carolina under first-year quarterback Bryce Young, but if he's going to get a majority of the touches, I think he has to be drafted pretty highly. Not in that upper tier with some of the other guys in offenses I really like a lot more, like the Travis Etienne, Joe Mixon, Ken Walker tier. But right below that with a 3-down workload possibility for Sanders, I think he's a great 0 RB target in the middle of your drafts. But I don't want to be relying on him if I don't have to. But still sizable upside with that contract he got in the offseason. I think Panthers should rely on him pretty heavily with a new rookie quarterback and Bryce Young starting. Next, I got J.K. Dobbins. I am worried about Dobbins. This contract talk, this knee injury, we don't know exactly why he's sitting out. More than likely the contract issue. He could be at practice very soon, according to some reports. Dobbins been such an efficient runner in his entire career in that Lamar Jackson-led offense. Dobbins is fully healthy heading into week 1. I love drafting him. The yards per carry mark that he's able to consistently hold in this offense is really remarkable. Not much in the receiving game for Dobbins, but we don't really expect that for where we're getting him in drafts. The ability to stay healthy has eluded Dobbins, which is why he's falling in drafts in this position. But if he's coming into the year healthy, I am drafting a lot of J.K. Dobbins, especially if they get this contract situation worked out and he is back at training camp and practice leading into week 1. Right after Dobbins, I'll take Dameon Pierce, a much worse offense in Houston, but it looks to be on the rise with C.J. Stroud at quarterback. Didn't look good in preseason game 1, I will admit, but Pierce coming into year 2 after a very impressive rookie season. The upside is limited with that offense. Isn't going to be much touchdown upside. The only running back they bring in Devin Singletary. Pierce should dominate the carries in this team. I'm okay drafting Pierce as my RB2. Very consistent player. Just very low upside with the situation going down for the Texans this year. I'll throw Alexander Mattison right here as well. Now, I don't expect him to be the feature back in Minnesota, but he's going to lead the team in rushes. Yes, he did perform very well when Dalvin Cook was missing time for the Vikings, but I'm not expecting him to step into that role on a consistent basis for this team. They're not really going to use him as a feature back like some people expect. With the offense that the Vikings are laying out there with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and Kirk Cousins, a very good regular season quarterback, there's some serious touchdown upside for Madison where you're getting him drafts. I'm just not ready to say that he's going to be anywhere similar to what Dalvin Cook was doing in his prime in Minnesota. For that fact, I got him a little bit lower than consensus rankings. Alvin Kamara here next. Does avoid a huge suspension, but does get the hit with the 3-game tag from the NFL. This is a lot lower than people were expecting, so I'm moving Kamara up my rankings a bit. He also does avoid the Kareem Hunt signing as of today. Now, if they bring someone in, it is going to cause me a little bit more concern as they don't expect Kamara to have the kind of volume he's seen in the past. Obviously, as an aging running back, he's not going to get that same level of work. My 22nd running back, Cam Akers for the Los Angeles Rams. I do have concern about this offense. Rams aren't projected to win very many games this year. But with Cooper Kupp in the first round, people aren't concerned about that aspect. So Cam Akers here does come off the torn Achilles, which causes me some concern, but he finished the year so strong last season. It gives me a little bit of confidence for a guy that has absolutely no running back competition whatsoever on this team. So the upside is there for Akers in this Sean McVay offense if the team is to outperform their Vegas win total, I think 6.5 games. They are an 8-9 win team. Akers should look to provide some serious value for his current ADP. Another guy on a bad team, but he's going to see a huge workload. Rashad White. Question marks at the quarterback position. Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask. But they should lean on White in this offense. Last season when Leonard Fournette missed, he was the guy, 3-down workload back. So taking them out of the equation, I have some confidence in White. If Tom Brady were still on this team with Leonard Fournette leaving town, White would probably be going at the 2-3 turn. So you're getting that discount baked into his current price for him being on a terrible offense. But with weapons like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans still in town, I think you're still going to be some productive drives for this Tampa Bay team. And White is a guy I think can handle that workload. While the touchdown upside might not be there, his receiving work should be able to carry him in fantasy. I don't mind taking him as my RB2 late if you are to wait on running backs. I think he does have a clear path to RB2 upside for where this team currently has at the running back position. He's really the only guy I trust there, so I don't mind taking him in late in drafts. Next, I'm going with James Conner. I'm not very high on Conner this year. The team is going to be absolutely terrible, the Cardinals. And yes, they were bad last year, and Conner had some pretty good numbers when Kyler Murray went down. But just another year older for Conner in this offense. We saw some pretty bad stretches for James last season in the middle of the year. And just to think that he's going to be the only guy they go to in this offense, I just can't get behind it. There's really no touchdown upside here for James Conner. I'm very low on him compared to some other people in the industry, but I still have him as a top 24 running back just because what else are the Cardinals going to do with this team? And really, I just don't want any chips in that offense. But if you're looking for some sort of safe volume, I guess Conner's your guy this late in drafts. I just can't get behind it. I'm going to add David Montgomery to this list. I do love Montgomery's upside in Detroit this year. Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't listed on this rankings list. That's why I didn't put him on. But if I had to put Gibbs somewhere on this list, I'd probably throw him right behind Aaron Jones. I am just worried about Gibbs. I think Montgomery's going to step into that Jamal Williams role inside the 5-yard line in red zone. He's going to eat up all those touches, just given that he's a much bigger back who we've seen have top 10 upside in juke rate. Montgomery does get a decent contract in Detroit, kind of similar to Miles Sanders. I think he gets $6 million a year. It tells me Detroit's going to use Montgomery, especially early in the year. Montgomery should look to get a very sizable role in this offense. Maybe later in the season, Gibbs turns it up and takes over as the lead back. But early on, I'm definitely looking at Montgomery as a safe option in fantasy. That's going to round out my top 24 running backs. Let me know in the comments what you think. I threw an extra guy on at running back 25. Let me know what y'all think of these rankings. If you disagree or agree, what guys are you loving this year in drafts, and who are you avoiding at their current average draft position? Let me know. But thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me. It shows you guys are picking up on some of the information we're putting out there. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.